Recorded at WMEB Studios at the University of Maine, it's time for All Three Phases.
Fires down the middle for Edelman, leaps to make the grab. Edelman to the end zone! Touchdown!
Playmaker, make a play! Woo!
Welcome back to All Three Phases, Episode 4, coming at you April 13th. Been quite a while since we recorded an episode. The last couple weeks have been awfully busy, and some things have changed since the last episode. First of all, the migration to YouTube, as you are now listening to us not on your listen, because the last time we uploaded an episode, it didn't take. So Episode 3, for those of you who didn't hear it, I think it was our best episode to date. So go ahead and that'll be on our YouTube channel before this is posted, so you go ahead and listen to that. Yeah, a lot of good draft breakdown of the defensive positions. We're going to continue that today. Cody, how you doing on this Monday morning?
Good. Always ready to talk some Patriots draft prospects. Like you said, last week went over defensive linemen at tackle and defensive end. This week looks like we're going to be breaking down the other defensive positions of need with the cornerbacks and linebackers.
Yeah, and side note, it's friggin' gorgeous out, finally. 13 days into April, and spring finally decides to show up to central Maine. So hopefully it'll stay this way. I think it's going to rain tomorrow. But nonetheless, we'll get right into it with some cornerback talk, some draft preview, and a little bit later, stay with us because we're going to be, once we go through these next two positions, or next three, I can't remember, next two, I think. After we're done with that, we're going to do an actual mock draft live here during our podcast. We'll do that in the next 3 weeks before the draft, and then, of course, once the draft happens, it's going to get a little bit more interesting because we'll actually know what we have to work with. So, Cody, I will hand it over to the draft guru over here to introduce our next segment, which I believe is cornerbacks.
Yeah, we're going to dive into cornerbacks here on all three phases right off. And obviously, cornerback is a relatively big position of need in the eyes of the media and fans, I think, for the New England Patriots, but
especially with the massive, I say massive, but it was a huge publicity thing with Revis leaving and going back to the Jets.
Yeah, and obviously, whenever you lose a guy like a Darrelle Revis, there is seemingly a very large hole left, but they have a lot of options in-house. I don't want to say Malcolm Butler is going to be the next Darrelle Revis. Obviously, he made some great plays in the Super Bowl, but
plus the one time I brought up that maybe he could come out of nowhere and make a splash, you kind of looked at me sideways, but
yeah, no, but I think in-house they think very highly of Malcolm Butler. They have some young cornerbacks in there. Alfonso Denard, a guy who lots of fans have forgotten about, who was placed on injury reserve, I think halfway through the season, but he's a guy that can come in and play some corner for you. Logan Ryan, obviously. They brought in some veteran free agents. So when we talk about cornerback, if they took one in the top 2 rounds, I wouldn't be surprised. But I also think that Patriot fans need to realize that, corner might not be the number one need per se for this team, unlike what is out there in the media right now. I don't think they look at cornerback the same way as fans do, in that I think they believe in some guys they have in-house, so they might not believe they need to take a guy early on in the draft. With that being said, obviously we'll start off with guys that are going to be there in round 1 for them, or very well could be sitting there at pick 32 if they decide to stay there. The first guy I want to talk about is Byron Jones. He isn't necessarily a guy that can come in and contribute instantly in the way that you would expect him to. He was the combine workout warrior at the cornerback position. He broke Jamie Collins' broad jump record at his pro day. He tested phenomenally. One of the more impressive feats that he had was 18 reps on the bench press, 225 pounds, which is impressive because he just had shoulder surgery this past season. His season was cut short due to injury. But one of the things that really attracts me to him as a player is he's a great locker room guy. From everything I've read, he was a team captain. I think he was voted as team captain. He has a lot of respect from the coaches. Those are traits that the Patriots look at and they really do love. And he's also extremely versatile in his play style. He can play safety. He would be an instant contributor at special teams. And he almost reminds me of another player they took in the first round that, might have seemed surprising at the time in Devin McCourty, and you see what McCourty has come to do. I think McCourty tested, pretty well at the combine. He was a smaller school prospect, obviously Rutgers. I think is even bigger than UConn, but in terms of football at least. But then came in as a cornerback, moved to safety, team leader, whole 9 yards, and we see the success that Devin McCourty has had on this team. So I think Byron Jones is a guy who could come in, might not be your starting left corner on day one,
but it'd definitely help with that depth.
But he would help with that depth, exactly. And, he is a little bit bigger. I think he's 6'1". Obviously, he's fast, he's strong, he's physical. Is he going to be, like you said, is he going to be a guy that can come in and, shut down Calvin Johnson like, Darrelle Reeves does?
Oh, no, absolutely not. He has he's got great speed, great size. He's when you look at him on paper, he's exactly the type of guy you want in your backfield on defense. He has in my opinion, the opportunity to become a starter at some time in his NFL career. And I think if the Patriots do pick him up, it'll take maybe a year or two, but I could see him, starting for the Patriots within those 2 years. However, I think he just needs to work on, being able to be more mobile. He's fast, but he's not going to be able to shut down, wide receivers like Calvin Johnson who can fool defenders into blowing coverage or losing their route, that type of thing. That's something he's going to have to work on. So, like you said, not someone who can instantly come in and make a difference, but it allows for more depth. So you could take those depth guys that you had and maybe move someone up and say, okay, it's your time to shine. You're going to have a lot of help on your defensive line, pressuring that quarterback. So they're going to do their job, and you need to do yours back here. And it's it's kind of a coming of age moment for these guys. And I feel like Byron Jones would fit well into the system. And like you said, he's a leader. Belichick loves that kind of leadership type thing. And I feel like, especially with Revis gone, he was obviously very vocal in that locker room. The guys liked him. But yeah.
No, and you're exactly right. I think one of the concerns about him was translating his speed, his pure, straight line speed into game speed. And obviously, some guys, they test not as well as they look on the football field, and exactly the opposite way with other guys where they test so well, but then you get them on the football field, when you add the mental and decision-making aspect of the game, they don't move quite as fast as you expect them to. So, Byron Jones is a guy who, I like him because of his high ceiling. The kid has all the potential in the world. He actually led the FBS in opposing quarterback rating. But then again, how much competition is a team like UConn getting? You have to throw that in the conversation as well. But obviously, he can play. He would be, he could add to, defense and special teams, which is huge for the Patriots. They love that. So even if they don't get the contribution in year one as a cornerback, as a gunner on kick returns, kickoffs, punt returns and punts, he'll be in the game and he will be contributing in those areas, which adds to his value for the Patriots. The next guy I want to talk about a little bit is Kevin Johnson. He's a cornerback out of Wake Forest. Another bigger cornerback, 6 foot, almost 200 pounds, a little bit bigger, not quite your Richard Sherman or Brandon Browner, but, a little bit bigger than a guy like Alfonso Denard. And even Revis, I think Revis is 5'11", but I like Kevin Johnson a lot. This is probably I look at him as one of those guys you instant plug and play. I think he could be a starting corner for you in year one, but the issue I have with Kevin Johnson is a lot of people are doubting his ceiling in that how much room for improvement does he really have to go? Has he maxed out on his ability? And while it would be great to get a starting cornerback in year one that you draft, I don't know if it's worth it looking at some of these other prospects to take a guy like Kevin Johnson with that 32nd pick when you can get a guy like Byron Jones who, you got to look into the future a little bit. You don't necessarily need to address cornerback now, which is how I opened the segment talking about. I don't think that the cornerback position is necessarily this, you got to have it in this draft.
I mean, it would be nice to get Byron Jones at that 32nd pick if he's still available, and if none of our other options that we discussed in the last episode are available in terms of where we think is most important, that front line on the defense to really make up for the fact of losing such strength in the backfield this offseason. However, when you really compare these two guys, Kevin Johnson and Byron Jones, it's kind of like, basically summing up what you said, I'm going to do my best here, is that Byron Jones is kind of, your pick for the future to say, this guy won't come in and be instantly good. But we'll have him a few years down the road. Whereas to Johnson is, well, I have no idea where this guy's going to be in 5 years, but you could use him right now. And I don't really like that gamble, and I don't think the Patriots would either. I feel like maybe if they saw something in him, they saw something in Johnson saying, you know what, he's better than Byron Jones is right now, and he can get better. Then yeah, I would trust him to make that decision. But I'm just not seeing it. But then again, all we have to go on are like the draft videos and the draft prospect reports and whatnot. So looking just at that, if you put me on the clock at 32nd pick, if both of these guys are available, I would probably pick Jones over Johnson.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you there. And I think those are probably the two guys that I look at most likely the Patriots to really show interest in if they are going to take a corner in round 1. Another guy, I'll just throw a name out there, Jalen Collins. He's a cornerback from LSU. Another, extremely athletic guy. He's not quite as seasoned. He needs to be coached up. But we've seen what Belichick has been able to do, taking guys that are just pure athletes and turning them into football players. Like Jamie Collins is probably the best example, most recent example. And, nothing against what Jamie Collins was in college, but they moved him around all over the field. He was a safety when he came into college, I think. I think he went to Mississippi State, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. But you just seen what the coaching staff has been able to do once they get that guy, that freak athlete, and then turning him into a football player. But granted, there's been many other guys that they brought in because they tested well and they had good, combine numbers, and then they just didn't pan out. You look at the wide receiver groups they've brought in, that's a whole different conversation. But I don't know if a guy like Jalen Collins would really interest them at 32. It seems kind of high for that type of player. I think they'd rather go with Byron Jones, who kind of has all the intangibles that they like to go with. And nothing against Jalen Collins though.
And if Byron Jones wasn't available at that pick, but Johnson was, I would actually probably still pick someone else above him. Thinking mainly, of course, of Ronald Darby out of FSU. But that's, of course, that's just showing my my Seminole bias there. You know how much I love when the Patriots draft Seminole players and from their rival as well, the Gators. Usually they play in those leagues that are already NFL ready. You see so many FSU guys come in just ready to go. Who was it this year that we got? Did we get
Brian Stork?
Brian Stork, straight out of FSU, comes right in and immediately makes an impact. An NFL ready offensive lineman. And Darby is looking, to be on the same caliber as Jones and Johnson, and I think that would be my deciding factor. There is the fact that I know that he would be ready to play in the NFL because you look at like Byron Jones, someone who you and I think very highly of. Like you said, he played for UConn, so how much real NFL caliber competition or competition that was getting him ready for the NFL was he really experiencing?
No, I agree with that, and I like Darby a lot. He's a little bit smaller. He's, more of a pure cover cornerback. He isn't that good in the run game and, providing run support, which, could be an issue if, a team can identify that early on and they decide to run the ball to his side of the field. You're going to have issues there. That's something he can work on, though. He can gain weight. He can work on his tackling ability, so on. But I don't know if Darby is necessarily in the round 1 conversation. He very well could go in round 1. But he's a guy that I look at more on day 2, whether it's in round 2 or round 3.
Yeah.
A couple of good player comparisons. I'm really not a big fan of them, but I think that they're pretty solid. One of them, Jonathan Joseph, cornerback for the Houston Texans, a solid player. And then another one I saw, I think Bleacher Report had it. It was they compared him to Chris Harris on the Denver Broncos, a guy who actually just got a big deal this year. Again, another solid cover cornerback. He's not a Darrelle Revis. He's not a Patrick Peterson, and so on. But he's a good, solid corner who, he's going to get beat from time to time. But for the most part, he will go out there and he will provide reliable snaps. While we're talking about FSU, you got to throw the other corner in there. P.J. Williams actually just got a DUI last week.
Nice.
Was in the news. But he was another one of those guys that, was in this rounds 1 to 3 range, depending on where he might land. Now it looks like he'll drop at least to round 3, if not further down.
Yeah.
And if you're the New England Patriots, that's definitely a guy that's on your radar now if he wasn't before. You've seen the Patriots. Alfonso Denard is a great example. He was a guy that was supposed to go, I think, in the earlier rounds, not necessarily round 1 when he was drafted, but he ended up falling to round 7. and the Patriots got him there. And for a 7th-round pick, Alfonso Denard has been, everything you could ask for. So P.J. Williams, another guy, I think he's a little bit bigger than Darby. But like you said, I agree with you in that, Florida State really does put out some good prospects. We'll see. Quarterbacks, they haven't done quite as well. You look at E.J. Manuel, the quarterback in Buffalo. He was from FSU, and he hasn't really done that well. But
I'm not really expecting Winston to do much either.
That's where I was going with that. I don't know about Winston, but other positions, we've seen offensive line. We're going to talk about them probably next week. There's a whole list of offensive linemen from FSU that the Patriots are hopefully going to be all over. But
hopefully, but I think the quarterback issue there is just a matter of that seems to be like a harder position to translate from college to the pros, whereas to other positions like linemen, it's the same thing. Just stop them from getting to the quarterback. Yeah,
and P.J. Williams, they're saying that he has a little bit more position versatility. He can play some safety.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something, like I said, the Patriots always take into account. What can you do for our football team? How many different positions can you play? And go off that. So, P.J. Williams instantly becomes a guy that, they may look at for that regard.
And another downside to Darby, though, I've been looking at his draft profile, seeing what people have been saying. One of their main issues with him is he lacks tough. Someone say that, or some scouts say that he lacks toughness, and they question it. Has issues grabbing downfield, has issues off the field. He was involved with the Jameis Winston incident. To which I say, sounds like people would be turned off by that, but that sounds like the type of thing the Patriots would be like, come here, we'll help you out.
Well, it all depends. If they can get that, if they can get it at a discount for that, then
absolutely,
they won't care. But if they still,
if Darby were to drop all the way down to day 2, day 3,
if I think they have 5 picks in the first 101.
Wow.
Which is solid, so they can do a lot of different things with those. We talked about, a couple weeks ago about moving up, moving down. The fact remains, if they do nothing, they'll have 5 picks within the first 2 days. So that's rounds 1, 2, and 3. Definitely at the end of, the first 3 days, because round 4 starts on Saturday, but they have the first pick of the 4th round. Those are very valuable picks, and I really do think that they are going to turn those into players that can make an impact in year 1. Whether that impact is to the level we saw Brian Stork do, I don't know. But no, they're gonna bring in some names that I think are gonna have some great rookie seasons for the Patriots. But another guy at corner, I'll just bring him up really quickly. I don't think the Patriots are really very interested in him. They did have a combine interview with him. So, they've done their homework on him. Marcus Peters, extremely talented cornerback, 6 foot, almost 200 pounds, great, great physicality for that position, size. But it's the off the field stuff. He was suspended for a game in 2014 by Washington head coach Chris Peterson for having a sideline tantrum. And then he was ultimately dismissed from the entire team because of these multiple occasions that he didn't agree with the coaching staff. So there are red flags. Whether or not that's enough for all the teams in the first round to not pick him, I don't know. If he didn't have these issues, he would be a top of the round, mid-first round selection without a doubt. I think his NFL comparison is very, on NFL.com, very funny in Aqib Talib, who was similar.
It's almost uncanny. The things you describe, I'm like, it sounds like a defensive back that the Patriots had a couple years back.
Right. So all the talent in the world, very skilled player, but it's the off-field stuff that scares you away. So if this kid really is kind of like an Aqib Talib, and if he's there in round 2, I could see the Patriots picking him up. I don't think he'll fall that far. I actually do think that he is going to go in round 1. Someone, before the Patriots come up, I think is going to roll the dice with him. There's a lot of teams out there, that are like the Patriots. They have strong locker rooms. They have, very powerful, vocal quarterback leaders that kind of run the room. You look at a team like Green Bay even, they always seem like they could use another cornerback. A team like that might be able to draft him, bring him in, not have an issue. But, if Marcus Peters does go in that range where he should have gone to maybe a team that, doesn't have that locker room structure, I think I said in one of my reviews on him, I said I wouldn't be surprised if, whether it be next year or years down the road, Marcus Peters is eventually a New England Patriot for the same reasons Aqib Talib was a member of the New England Patriots.
And then eventually a member of the Broncos?
That's right.
You think the cycle will complete where he'll go from New England to Denver?
It'd be pretty funny.
It would be hilarious. But nonetheless, what other cornerbacks, if any, did we want to talk about?
So I have 3 more. One of them is probably I have no idea. I am very, very skeptical on where he's going to land or what round he's going to be in. There is definite interest with the Patriots and him. It's Eric Rowe, cornerback out of Utah, I believe. Utah. He's big. 6'1", 205. That is, good body size for the NFL to, cause issues with these big physical receivers. He can also play some safety. Again, one of those guys. I don't know if he's quite good in man coverage as the Patriots would want him to be. But then again, when you look at what their defense is probably shifting to, they are going to shift to more of a zone type defense. So that might, help him out. Some draft experts have this guy going as early as middle of the first round.
Wow, really?
Other guys have him dropping to round 4 or 5.
Yeah, no, I could see why, because he's huge and athletic, but the issue is he's huge. Like he doesn't have that acceleration, so man coverage is gonna be hell for him. And like you said, that's with the Patriots, their defensive style, what it's switching to, trying to load that front 7. It's gonna be easier to play with a type of player like Eric Rowe. However, I don't know if there might be better options available.
He's kind of that tweener. He's that guy that can, you could probably switch from corner to safety within the same game because he has that experience. He's kind of a thumper. He can help you in the run game because he's so big. He's a guy that in that range, those last 3 picks they have, I think they have 2 of the last picks in the 3rd round and then the first pick in round 4. If he's there, they're going to take him in that range definitely, if not earlier. I think they're very high on Eric Rowe. Again, he's one of those guys like a Byron Jones. He has all the physical traits. He's versatile. He's a guy that they would want to bring in. They can kind of use them like, the Swiss Army knife. Similarly, that's what these guys are like that they bring in. They like that versatility. So Eric Rowe's a guy I would definitely keep your eye on. He very well could be gone in round 1 before the Patriots are even up and on the clock. So I don't know. 2 more quickly. We'll go over 2 more guys really quickly here. Quentin Rollins. He's another guy. He's a little bit smaller, very fast. He was actually a point guard before he switched to football full time. So there's some issues about how much experience he really does have playing the game. He's from Miami, Ohio. Smaller size cornerback, 5'11", 195. He's not going to wow anyone with his size, but he is extremely fast, and he's got, good agility from side to side. Obviously, his 4 years of playing basketball helped with that, but he would be a guy that I would look into. He could, with the proper coaching and technique work, he could, mirror wide receivers well. He isn't going to be a guy that comes in day 1 and can make fans forget about Darrelle Revis, but he'll just add to that pool of potential guys that, Bill is, with his cornerbacks, Bill's just kind of throwing a bunch of darts at the wall, and he's going to see which ones stick. And Rollins would be a good guy to bring in. Yeah,
it's the same thing as what they do with the running back situation. And, last year it worked well enough, and I feel like he would be a good addition to the pool. Especially since it seems like he is fast, but it seems like he might fall under the radar of a couple guys, a couple teams. And if he's available and you've got a pick to spare, I think he would be a great addition even with better options. I think the Patriots might even take him. He seems like that kind of player who the Patriots would draft. And in the last couple of years, I know we've had this situation where the Patriots will draft a player and kind of the fans will look at each other and be like, who? Wait, what? Why him? And then they end up, coming through amazingly. It would not surprise me at all if the Patriots picked him, just because that's just their MO. They love athletic guys, and I know some people. I know Facebook comments are usually not the thing to go by, but I've been reading them at the bottom of these pages, and I think this is the first one outright where I've seen a Patriots fan asking for this guy. And so yeah, the people are doing their research more so than I do usually.
Yeah, and the last guy I'll go over, he's kind of my late round flyer. He's actually listed as a safety, Ladarius Gunter from the University of Miami, Florida, that is. And he can also play corner, though. He is the same mold as Eric Rowe, 6'1", over 200 pounds. He's very flashy. When he makes a big play, he makes a big play, but consistency is his main concern. He's a later round guy, though, rounds 4, 5, 6. That's where you're going to pick him up. He would be, again, good depth. None of these guys are going to come in and step in and have that initial impact like they could find at other positions, I think, which is why, all these corners that we just highlighted, they would all be solid additions to the New England Patriots. But I don't know if the value is there at cornerback where there is value at other positions like defensive line, like at linebacker, which we're going to get into next. And next week when we talk about offensive linemen, I really do think that those positions should be and will be drafted and taken care of before the Patriots move to corner, unless something comes up out of the blue. But we'll see on April 30th. We'll get our first crack at what teams are doing in the first round of the NFL draft. You can actually catch that on ESPN. It'll be on Thursday night. Always fun to watch. It's in Chicago this year too. It's kind of funny. They moved it from Radio City. I think it was Radio City Hall, right? Radio City Music Hall. But they're moving to Chicago. It'll be fun to watch. But no, I don't know if cornerback is a position they're going to go with in round one. I would lean towards no. I don't think they're going to address it until the second, if not the third round, which, again, makes guys like, Byron Jones, if by some act of God he does fall into round 2, I could see them going with him. But guys that I would look at, Ronald Darby, P.J. Williams, Eric Rowe. I think one of those guys they're probably going to take within, the second, third, fourth round.
So next we move on to another defensive position we haven't looked at yet, and one that's actually really, really interesting and exciting you, Cody, which is the linebacker position. Love it. The last couple of years when the Patriots have drafted some really good linebackers that have come in to make an impact. And the first guy on your list, it sounds like, could be one of those players who can instantly come in and make an impact for the Patriots.
Yeah, and I think fans are going to be kind of surprised that I think so highly of them taking a linebacker early in the draft this year. But when you think about it, you have Gerard Mayo, who is coming off yet another injury. His contract situation is still in flux. I have to imagine he will take a pay cut, so he will be around in Foxborough this year. But then you look at Dante Hightower and Jamie Collins, and both of those guys are coming towards the ends of their rookie contracts very quickly. I think it's by May 3rd they have to make the decision if they are going to give Dante Hightower his fifth-year option. The same goes to Chandler Jones. So hopefully they'll pick those options up and work towards long-term deals. But Jamie Collins, since he was technically a second-round draft pick, although he was their first pick in 2013, he has to play out the entirety of his rookie deal before they can talk extension with him, I believe. So there's a need there to add another linebacker. Belichick and the entire Patriots crew does a great job of drafting linebackers. We've seen how great Mayo, Hightower, and Collins have been. You look at a guy even like Brandon Spikes, he's still a productive linebacker, whether or not, it didn't end very well for his term in New England, but I just think that linebacker is a position they draft well. You can always use another good linebacker. I don't care what team you are, because really that's the position that quarterbacks the entire, field. Your middle linebacker or one of your linebackers is normally your play caller. It's a good position to draft high in. And for me, my favorite linebacker of this group is Eli Harold. He's from Virginia. He's got good size, 6'3", 247 pounds. He ran a 4.6 40 at the combine, so he's fast. Had a good 3-cone time. He almost broke 7 seconds. Another area where Bill Belichick really likes to see, because that shows change of direction and acceleration and agility. But Eli Harold is really considered an edge rusher. He has some scheme versatility. He can play outside linebacker and stand up for you in a 4-3 or even in a 3-4. But yet, when they run the 4-3, he can also put his hand in the dirt, and he can be a defensive end, so he can provide depth there. And we've really seen what the Patriots are looking to do this offseason. It looks like they're going to try to, get a little bit more of a pass rush to make up for, the woes that they may see in the secondary, especially at the cornerback position. So I think Eli Harold would be a no-brainer if he falls to pick 32. I don't know if he will fall that far, but if he does, I think that he is the slam dunk home run pick. He's starting to be my 2015 version of Dominic Easley as we get closer to the NFL draft. So he's kind of like the guy that I have my eye on.
And for very good reason. He touts a lot of strength. Looking at his scouting report, he's a very big guy, very athletic. The main weaknesses he presents are things that could be easily worked out in your first couple of years, especially your first year if you're expecting him to come in and make a huge impact, which he has the ability to do, in my opinion. He's just got to work on being able to shred these blockers to try to get in better at the pass rush and run defense. However, I think he's athletic enough where the Patriots are going to look at him and say, "Yeah, no, you're going to come over here and we're going to teach you, and any downfalls that you have are going to be gone, and you're going to be ready for day one, and you're going to make an impact."
Yeah, no, and a lot of people might think that he could be too much of like a Jamie Collins type linebacker, and that, how many Jamie Collins do we need in the linebacking core? To which I say, as many as you can get, honestly, because Jamie Collins is so good at so many things. The more guys you have like that, the more athletic your front seven is, more specifically your linebacking group. So you can have Jamie Collins cover a tight end, and then Eli Harold blitz on any given package, or the exact opposite, because they're both so athletic. So I really do think that if they could pick up a guy like Eli Harold, that way you can really monitor Mayo and Hightower snaps at the beginning of the year. You can, start to incorporate Eli Harold. You can keep legs fresh because Dante Hightower might not be ready for right at the beginning of the season. He's on schedule to be ready for the beginning of September, but if he has a setback, you're looking at the first, month of the season, you might be without Dante Hightower. So hopefully Jerron Mayo comes back healthy. Hopefully Hightower does too, but they could add a linebacker early in the draft in the first round if they wanted to, and to put themselves in a very good position with that defense going forward.
So this is, the last 2 weeks, or the last 2 episodes, I should say, we've been talking about who, we've been looking at potential number 32 picks for the Patriots if they drop there, and you're thinking this is the guy.
If this guy ends up at 32 and they pass on him, I would be kind of disappointed. I think that this is it for me right now. There's a couple other guys. There's an offensive lineman we'll talk about probably next week. Another one of these guys that if he's there at 32, I think it's a no-brainer. At defensive tackle, we talked about a guy like Malcolm Brown. There's 0.001% chance he's there at 32. But even a guy like Eddie Goldman, it looks like the Patriots are really high up on him. If he's there at 32, it looks like he could be a player they could take. This Eli Harold is on my short list of guys that I would like to see them take, and I don't want to see them trade out if they have the chance to get a guy like him. And honestly, if Eli Harold is available, late 20s, again, he might be one of these guys where I would try to move up a couple spots.
You go up and
grab
get,
him.
yeah. But yeah, we'll obviously get more into that when we do our mock draft later in the episode after we're done talking about linebackers. But until then, we'll continue with another guy who I'm not sure who you want to go to next. Maybe Shaq, or maybe the guy with the interesting name.
No, we'll go Shaq Thompson next. Shaq was early in the draft process. Again, he was probably one of my early favorites to I wanted the Patriots to grab. He actually was the winner of the Paul Hornung Award. I think I said that right, but it's given to the nation's most versatile player. So instantly, right there, you get red flags beckoning calls for Patriots fans. But this kid is a pure football player. He played linebacker, he played safety, and he even played running back for Washington the past 2 seasons, which is just outstanding. It shows a lot of football IQ, the fact that you know so many plays and you are successful. I mean, the kid can play. But my main issue with him, 6 foot, 228 pounds, that doesn't necessarily sound like an NFL caliber linebacker to you. And, his size is really what's kind of scaring teams away, I think. But in terms of football IQ, in terms of, how smart he is on the field, that's what's going to keep him in this first round discussion for a lot of teams.
Yeah, if he were to bulk up a little bit here in this offseason, I feel like he'd be a lot more attractive to other teams who might want to pick him up. But you're right, that size... he's actually smaller than I am, which I'm a big guy, but I'm not that big of a guy. And to be smaller than me and be an NFL linebacker would be a little bit unheard of, but I feel like if you could play football to his caliber, I feel like the Patriots would love to pick him up if he's available.
No, yeah, and he actually has some New England ties actually already. I think he
Really?
was drafted by the Red Sox. Let me see here. I don't remember what.
The Red Sox?
Yeah, so he was a sprinter, long jumper, and a standout baseball player drafted by the Red Sox in the 18th round of the 2012 MLB draft. So
Wow.
kind of interesting to see some New England ties already. Not sure if that's going to help them out any. But he's a guy that a lot of mock drafts are predicting to go in the first round before the Patriots come on the board. There's actually one mock on Bleacher Report. I can't remember who wrote it, but actually had Shaq Thompson going to the Patriots at pick 32.
Really?
My closest comparison to him as a guy on the Patriots right now, I don't really like comparing him to him, but in terms of scheme versatility, I look at a guy like Patrick Chung, that kind of, safety, defensive back, but can come up into the box and defend the run well. So Shaq Thompson being a linebacker, obviously, he should be able to defend against the run, but also he has the coverage skills. So Shaq Thompson could be a guy that the Patriots add. He would definitely bring more versatility to the front seven, which is, versatility. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the word versatility. But, no, he's a guy that I like a lot. I don't know if he's going to be there. He's not quite Eli Harold in my book, but again, he's a guy, especially in round 2. If he does fall to round 2, if the Patriots can move the picks around and get him in the second round, that would be a great pickup in my mind.
Yeah, he's diverse. He's athletic. That smaller frame allows him to be a little bit quicker, which you like to see from a linebacker. But someone who it'd be interesting to see someone who played running back in college to become a linebacker in the NFL. I'm not sure if he'll immediately go right into the front seven for the Patriots or in that area, or if he might just work out on special teams if they do pick him up. I think that would probably be his most likely bet. He seems to be the name of the show is all three phases, because Bill talks about all the time how you got to win all three of them, and special teams is something that, especially this past year, the Patriots have been so well at, and a player like Shaq Thompson could very well fit into this special teams and make it even scarier than it was.
And Shaq is really one of the guys that I look at where he didn't test quite as fast as he is on the field. He only ran his 40 in 4.6 mid, 4.64. They have him listed on NFL.com. He's one of those guys, I've watched some tape on him. It looks like he does move faster on the field. Obviously, being a running back, I've seen him break off some big plays on some of his highlight videos. But again, that's one of those guys where the test results might fool you in that. I think that when he's on the field, he does play faster. Obviously he does have, a decent football IQ. He might, again, nobody's perfect here. He's a young player. He's played multiple positions, so he might look slow to the ball a few plays, but again, that's a spot where if they move him to linebacker and, really keep him there in that spot, he'll get better with it at times.
No, yeah, that's the thing you got to look at when you look at the weaknesses of these players and say, well, he doesn't do this quite as well as we want him to. Yeah, he's still a college player. You're going to have to work through these guys. Even guys from FSU have those things that we tout them as NFL-ready college players, but they still have things they need to work on. Heck, they're NFL pros who still have things they need to work on.
Exactly. So the next couple guys, these are guys in round 2, I'm expecting them to go. We'll kind of lump all three of them together or actually all four of them to talk about them. The Bernardrick McKinney from Mississippi State, Denzel Perryman from Miami, Stephon Anthony from Clemson, and Paul Dawson from TCU. All these guys are, I think naturally middle linebackers, so they would be more of a Gerard Mayo fit than, the outside linebackers in Eli Harold and Shaq Thompson. Bernardrick McKinney, we'll start with him. He is massive. 6'4", 246 pounds, extremely fast for his size.
Now that's a linebacker.
He tested extremely well at the combine. But I'm not sure if there's anything that makes him pop. He's, a productive linebacker. I don't think he's going to wow you on any one play. I think just his consistency is, going to be solid. But again, this is one of those guys. He tested well, but his play doesn't look quite that fast on the field.
Yeah, no, he's definitely the average size that you want for an NFL linebacker, and he definitely I forgot what I was going to say, but he shows lower than average agility, so that's an issue regarding his play style. But he's consistent, so you can give him that. If you're looking for someone day in, day out who's not going to make you go, oh, wow, where did he come from? But he's going to make you go, okay, I'm glad we picked this guy. He's doing the same thing every day. Then, yeah, he's the kind of guy you want to go for.
Denzel Perryman, we'll talk about him next, from Miami. A little bit smaller, lot smaller, 5'11", 236, but he is just old school linebacker. He's great against the run. He is going to come up in the box. He's going to hit you in the mouth and love it. But he definitely struggles when trying to cover in space. He's kind of got the heavy legs. Might look like Dante Hightower did in his rookie season and even his sophomore season before he improved on his coverage skills. But Denzel Perryman, a guy that can come sit in the middle of your defense, support you against the run, but when it comes to the pass, all bets are off. Actually, kind of reminds me of a Brandon Spikes-esque player.
Yeah.
But then moving on to Stephon Anthony, another bigger guy, 6'3", 243, ran a 4.5 40 at the combine. This is the guy where if you need to cover a tight end, you call up Stephon Anthony. He is extremely talented in coverage, but the knockoff here is he doesn't have quite the best tackling skills. He can't take on offensive players quite as well as a guy like Perriman or even like Benedict McKinney. Now we get to the guy that has drawn many, many links to the Patriots, Paul Dawson. 6 foot 235, not massive for an inside linebacker, but this is a guy that I love the term that when they describe linebackers having a nose for the ball. That's just, I like that. That means that he's, one of those guys that's always in the right place at the right time. Whenever I think about that as Rob Ninkovich on the Patriots right now. Just always seems to be in the right spot. He has a lot of character issues, I guess, though, so that's going to scare teams off. He's projected to go in round 2, but nobody's doubting his talent on the field, which is why I think the Patriots are showing lots of interest in him. So we'll see. He's probably one of the guys that I would really keep an eye on if I'm a Patriots fan. Paul Dawson, definitely a serious possibility. And just really wrapping up here for our linebacker preview, 2 names to watch in the mid to later rounds. Both have good special teams value, and both are just guys that coaches love to coach, and actually both just play like they love the game of football. And that's Ben Heaney, linebacker from Kansas, 6 foot, 231 pounds, and then Jordan Hicks, who's actually more of an outside linebacker from Texas, 6'1", 236 pounds. Both those guys definitely seem like, Patriot-type players. You look at guys like Dane Fletcher and even Matt Chatham back from the glory days, guys that can, fill in at linebacker from time to time. They're not going to be your starting linebackers, but on special teams, they are going to be very, very important contributors.
So I guess we'll move into, a more entertaining part of the show where we do a mock draft. On fanspeak.com, they have a app called On the Clock where you can simulate this year's NFL draft as any team, and of course, we're going to pick the Patriots. And we're going to go through each pick and see what's left on the board, see what picks the Patriots might take, or at least in our opinion, what they would take in that situation. So we've already simulated the first round.
Another thing really quickly, sorry, before we go, though, you can actually pick different big boards, which is nice. So you get to, and the big board just determines the player rankings. It also determines what the different teams need. And it does a good job of switching up what teams will take each time you do it. For this one, we're using Matt Miller's he's from Bleacher Report, obviously a very, very established draft scout. He does some great stuff over there at Bleacher Report, so we went with his.
All right, so looking at some of the players that we were just talking about actually today, Shaq Thompson going pick 20 to the Eagles. Some other people. Some people dropped. What was the one you were looking at? Dante Fowler?
Yeah, Dante Fowler dropping to pick 6, which is kind of surprising if that would happen in the real draft. He's the guy definitely top 5, I think, is going to go.
Yeah.
And Eli Harold, my guy, going pick 22, I think, to the Steelers.
Yeah.
But so we're sitting here at pick 32. A lot of guys are already gone. Cam Irving is another guy. We're going to talk about him probably next week.
We haven't talked about offensive positions. We mostly been talking defensive. So other people we look at: Jalen Collins, Marcus Peters, those 2 cornerbacks going 28, 29. Benedict McKinney going 30th to the Packers, and then to the Saints. Someone we didn't talk about yet, a wide receiver, Dorial Green-Beckham. So sitting at pick 32, your guy's gone, Eli Harold. Most of the guys we talked about on defense, like defensive tackle, defensive end, are gone. We still have some cornerbacks, though. Ronald Darby and Byron Jones and Kevin Johnson, all 3 of them still on the board. But you and I are thinking probably more of a tackle position, and I think we're going to pick offensive tackle from Florida, DJ Humphries.
Yeah, and that's, again, another probably surprising pick for Patriots fans. If you're going to say, offensive lineman, get a guard. But, Nate Solder, his contract they actually just extended his 5th-year option this year, so he's on contract for this year, but then after that, it's kind of unknown. And what tackles are getting on today's market is absurd. And I don't know if the Patriots are going to pay him that type of money. So DJ Humphries is a guy, very talented player. Dante Scarnecchia, the ex-offensive line coach, was at Florida's Pro Day, working heavily with him. So the Patriots are interested in him. If DJ Humphries is available at 32 from in this draft, that's what we're going to go with.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about him yet, but once we get to our offensive tackle,
we'll bring him up.
Once we get to our offensive tackle positions, you'll definitely hear his name coming up. There goes Ronald Darby, pick 35.
Paul Dawson went first pick of the round, too.
Yep. Darby went to the Raiders, funnily enough. So we're just going to call out names as we see them going by. Names that we've been talking about, names that interest us, that we're unfortunately missing. But, I mean, hey, that's how the draft works.
That's how it works. You can't get them all, unfortunately.
Yeah. Ravens getting a wide receiver. That's always fun. P.J. Williams going to the Green Bay Packers. I think I saw someone mention that. Seahawks getting wide receiver Devin Funchess.
Yeah, he's from Michigan. He can play wide receiver and tight end. He's pretty versatile. So, sitting here at the end of the second round, pick 64, a couple names were on our, the best players available according to the rankings of this big board.
Yep.
Some guys who definitely the Patriots would be interested in. You look at defensive end Nate Orchard from Utah. He's a solid player. Jordan Phillips, we talked about him in defensive tackles. The big thing on him, though, is his effort level. Not sure about him.
Yeah.
Quentin Rollins, a guy that we talked about today, actually.
We
See,
can
this is what makes this so much fun. Go back to wide receiver.
Yeah, more people we haven't talked about yet, but we will get to next week. Rashad Green from Florida State. That sticks out to me. I'm a Florida State guy. You know that.
Mm-hmm. Nelson Aguilar is very polarizing. He's one of those guys that they're predicting to go all over the place, but another potentially good pickup. Can he go to guard?
Absolutely. Top guard right now, A.J. Cann, Trey Jackson.
Oh, sorry, defensive tackle.
Defensive tackle.
They got it.
Jordan Phillips, Henry Anderson, Xavier Cooper.
Yep. So if this is the situation, I think the Patriots are going to go Grady Jarrett. He's the guy we talked about. If he's available at the end of the second round. He's smaller. He's from Clemson. He's kind of like that Dominic Easley type presence with a lot of interior pass rush. He's not going to be a big body that just eats up blockers. He's going to be a guy that can get by the offensive lineman responsible for him and go get the quarterback. So if Grady Jarrett is available with pick 64, that's the guy the Patriots are going to get. I think.
I agree with you. I think they're going to be trying to load up those defensive and offensive lines. It seems to be the offensive line was a position that we've been having issues with the last couple of years. And defensive line is now something we're going to want to beef up with the loss of Revis. So moving on to the next round the third pick in the draft, Quentin Rollins just went through to the Titans. Other people we've been looking at, Xavier Cooper to the Bears. I'm not sure if we talked about Ramik Wilson. He's going to the Rams in this mock draft. So here, sitting at the third pick, round 3, pick 32, some people that just went by. Amir Abdullah, running back to Green Bay, and to Seattle, Ifo Ekpre Alamu, a cornerback. That's a mouthful of a name.
He's from Oregon.
Probably.
So this is the area that I really think the Patriots are going to do their damage in. They own 3 of the next, I think it's like 7 or 8 picks. They have 2 at the end of round 3, and they have the first one around 4. On top of the board right now, we see 2 running backs, David Cobb and Mike Davis, 2 guys the Patriots have talked to. We'll talk about running backs next week. I don't know if it's quite the need to take one right here. A guy that I'm instantly looking at right now, guard Ali Marpet from Hobart. He is a D3 star. He turned heads at the Senior Bowl, though, so he kind of lived up to kind of what people were talking about him there because he got to play some pretty good competition. Can you go to guard for me?
Oh, sure. Yeah, he's the top-rated guard right now.
So that's going to be the pick for me. I would think Ali Marpet. You take 2 offensive linemen in the first 3 rounds. I don't think that's a bad thing if you're the New England Patriots. I think sometimes the best weapon to give Tom Brady is to keep him upright. And actually, we're on the clock again because they own back-to-back picks here, so it doesn't really matter what order we go. So if I'm sitting here, this is where I take my cornerback. Like I said, there's a guy on the board I like, Eric Rowe. He's still available.
Oh, yep, there he is.
He's the guy I would take here, and you're kind of taking a risk, but at the end of the day, at the end of the third round, if you can get a guy that could potentially be a superstar in the league, you take that risk. As the third round ends.
So, yeah, that's some solid pickups there if the Patriots were to do that in that situation. And, I mean, you've been watching their draft habits for some time now, so it's not like you're just sitting here going in blind saying, oh, they might do this. No, this is a decent a summation of what they might do. Pick 32, Ali Marpet. Pick 33, Eric Rowe. and on to round 4.
So now we get a guy who I am very high on. We'll talk about him next week. I don't want to talk too much because, like I said, we'll talk about him next week a lot. Tyler Lockett from Kansas State. Very fast, explosive receiver. Has value on special teams. Has a return specialist. He's the guy I take at the beginning of the 4th round. A lot of love for this guy. Ultra competitive. Is a film rat. Just loves playing the game. It's hard to go wrong with a player like that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Now, so that was 3 picks in a row, I believe, for the Patriots, or three out of 4 or something, 3 out of 6. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty part of the draft where players we may have talked about or may have just kind of breezed over. Ben Heaney being one of them.
Yeah. See, Ben Heaney was a guy I was going to take here at the end of the 4th round. It's kind of too bad he's gone. Actually, I'm pretty sure they have a pick in the 4th.
Yeah, you said one time that Byron Jones dropped to this late, and you like.
No, I don't know if it was this late. I think it was one of these I did. He fell to pick 64 in the 2nd round, so I was like, oh wow. And okay, so there's another guy right there. We'll talk about him really quickly here. Shaq Mason. We'll talk about him next week, but he's a guy end of round 4. That's probably where he should go, but that was one of those guys I was picking up in the middle rounds. It was kind of a steal pick for me.
Yeah, he went to the Seahawks. He's a center.
He can play guard too, though. So there's a couple guys I'm instantly thinking about. Jamison Crowder from Duke. He's an undersized slot receiver. Patriots have had private workouts with him. Chris Conley, wide receiver from Georgia. He was another one of those workout warriors. Had great combine numbers. I'm a big fan of his. He's a good locker room guy, good leader. I don't think he's going to be available when I want to get him later on. He is a guy I think can come in, and again, they are going to want to bring in camp bodies to, have a lot of competition for that 4th wide receiver spot. If Chris Conley could be a guy that could compete there, and taking 2 wide receivers, we've seen the Patriots do it before. Wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. I think they're trying to reinvent that position with the younger age guys. Obviously you have Edelman, LaFell, and Amendola at the top, but after that it gets really really scary real quick.
Yeah. So Patriots. Getting some wide receiver depth, never a scary thing, especially when you got a quarterback like Tom Brady who can make them look incredibly talented. Not that they aren't talented, but he definitely helps them.
Hurt,
It doesn't hurt to have Tom Brady,
Throwing
manning your
ball.
offense. So in the 4th round, 2 wide receivers you think the Patriots would pick in that particular situation, and then on to round 5.
Where they actually don't have a pick, so this will be quick.
Yeah, this will be really quick. Nunez Roches going to the Titans.
David Johnson, a running back. We'll talk about him next week. He was the guy I was contemplating as well, a pass-catching running back out of the backfield. We'll talk about him.
So a lot of players going in that round. No one we were really looking at other than Gunter and David Johnson, I believe.
Yep.
Went to the Jaguars. And round 6.
Patriots have the second pick of the 6th round, sorry. So there's a couple names instantly I'm looking at here. Bobby McCain, cornerback from Memphis. Didn't talk about him because, again, he's one of these late-round guys. He's a guy that's been linked to the Patriots. I've talked to him before. Jeremy Davis from UConn. He's another guy definitely on their radar. He's actually rated high in this draft, or on this big board right now. I'm surprised he's being suggested to be taken here so early on. But this is going to be kind of a surprise pick. But we are going to go with defensive tackle Ellis McCarthy out of UCLA. He is an enormous defensive lineman. He came in as a 5-star prospect out of high school into college, but he had weight issues, conditioning problems, and it didn't really turn out the way that they had planned at UCLA. So he's a guy that does have a lot of potential. Maybe if he gets in the right scheme, gets the right mentoring, coaching, he can relive some of that potential. But again, guys that you take in the 6th and 7th round, you want to get that big bang type players. You're very rarely going to draft consistently impact players at that spot. You take a risk on guys. The Patriots took a risk on Tom Brady almost. There was one of the guys that they said, well, we're surprised he's still here, so let's pick him up, see what can happen. Even a guy like Julian Edelman, I think when Belichick drafted him, he said, we don't know who we're going to play you, but we know you can play football well.
Yep, and it's only 1 pick in the 6th round. You think the Patriots will select a defensive tackle out of UCLA, Ellis McCarthy, on to round 7, which I believe you said there was 1 more pick or
2
more picks. Yep, we get the 2nd pick. First pick of that round was Adam Sheed, a guard out of.
So this is where I've done this multiple times. This is the point where I'm like, I try to pick players that I've heard their names before, because obviously I'm not that deep into the draft that I can just list off these guys' names. Yep. Wow. Lyndon Trail from Norfolk State, outside linebacker. We're going to take him. He's another one of those guys. He's kind of like that Jordan Hicks. He's not quite as good, but, he can give you depth in the linebacking core. He can play special teams. It'd be a solid pickup. And the last pick in the 7th round the Patriots has been consistently one of the picks that I go with. I'm sure he's still going to be on the board. I'll talk about him right now. Running back Kenny Hillard from LSU. We saw the last time the Patriots drafted a kid out of LSU. He had a pretty decent amount of success. Did he get drafted?
I think so.
What?
Yeah.
No, he didn't. He's down low.
Oh, is he really? Oh, there he is.
See, like this big board has him mocked. What was that? 353 overall or 363?
353.
353. Okay, so but I think Kenny Hillard is a better play than that. He LSU again. They run kind of a more pro style offense. Stephen Ridley came out of LSU and really did some good things for the Patriots. Obviously, he's a New York Jet now, but Kenny Hillard is a guy that I would take. You might be able to get him as an undrafted free agent. Obviously, if these rankings are what NFL teams really think, but my philosophy is if you like a guy and he's available and you determine that he's valuable, you should go and get him right there. So I think that Kenny Hillard would be a very solid end of the 7th round pick. So a quick recap here for our first Patriots mock draft. I think we're going to try to do this again a couple times.
I think every week now before the draft actually happens.
So we have DJ Humphries, offensive tackle out of Florida, with our first pick. Well, I'll just list out the names here. Then we go Grady Jarrett, defensive tackle out of Clemson. Offensive guard Ali Marpet from Division III Hobart. One of my favorites, cornerback Eric Rowe out of Utah. Double dipped at wide receiver with our 5th and 6th picks overall. Tyler Lockett, wide receiver from Kansas State. And then Chris Conley from Georgia. Underachiever Ellis McCarthy, but great physical specimen. Then we go Lyndon Trail, special teams linebacker, fill-in type player. And lastly, running back Kenny Hillard.
So that brings us to the point of the show where we start talking about a little bit more off-topic things, kind of like side stories. And a big side story that just happened. It is the 13th, and just the other day, the Masters concluded with a new champion, young buck,
Jordan Spieth,
who is has ties to Tom Brady. Just put out a video just the other day on Underarmour. Both of them are sponsored by Underarmour, and that's kind of what Cody wanted to talk about, was kind of his opinion piece on Underarmour kind of closing the gap between itself and brands like Nike to be the best, sports clothing brand.
Yeah, I always feel like that Under Armour is a relatively new brand. They're not as old as Nike or Adidas even, or even Reebok. Seems like they were kind of the new kids on the block in the athletic clothing scene. And we saw we didn't see, but you see what Michael Jordan did for Nike, and now you see guys like Tom Brady. Now you have Jordan Spieth under that Under Armour brand, and both of them winning obviously Brady being Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, and now Jordan Spieth winning one of the biggest golf events in the world, really. I'm curious to see how that does for the Under Armour brand in terms of their value, their fiscal value. Obviously, Nike is still king. They have LeBron James. They had Derek Jeter. They had some of the biggest names in the game. But now, you see some of these guys. Brady obviously still has another couple years left. And, Jordan Spieth obviously being one of the youngest players to ever win a Masters. And he was actually only one shot off the all-time record. If he wouldn't have goofed up the putt on 18, he actually would have had it. But I just thought that was very curious. That's instantly what I thought of, when Jordan Spieth was wearing, all Under Armour gear yesterday. It was very obvious. He had the nice blue hat, blue polo, white pants, very professional looking. Under Armour has really come a long way, I think. And I think, I don't know about they'll surpass Nike just because Nike is such a big brand. But I definitely think that they are, if not now, very soon will be the number 2 athletic clothing line behind Nike.
Just I like to point at the video that you had me watch before we talked about this. Tom and Jordan kind of golfing together, and it's kind of like the passing of the torch of the biggest Under Armour star from one to another. So, they talked about Tom Brady's getting old and he might not be around for much longer, and Tom kind of giving pointers to Jordan, and Jordan asking for advice on what's it like to win young and it was a really good video to watch.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
it's a feel good video. Obviously, both those guys are very highly respected in their sports. Both have said to win with grace. So it was a good video. Obviously, everything Tom Brady, every good Tom Brady video on YouTube. I've hopefully watched it at least one time. So this was a good one. I'm an avid golfer. I don't know if I would even classify it as avid. I play. I don't know, not very good, but it's fun. So I did enjoy watching the Masters, and obviously this is just another great tie-in for everything, Patriots, really.
So that just about wraps it up for episode 4 of All Three Phases. We'll be back next week with some more draft preview and another mock draft to see if anything's different from this week, if anything changed since then. And, that'll just about do it. For Cody the Chance, I am Brendan Poli, saying thank you for listening, and go Pats. We'll see you next week.
New England, the Patriots and me, rolling on to victory.
We did it. Hooray.
That's what she said.